Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with another episode of the Strafing Run, and you'll have to forgive the quality of my voice, still a bit under the weather, but feeling good enough to make this video. Obviously I'm back from my trip to Vancouver. Prior to that, I had flown into Seattle. Wanted to take a look at that city for quite some time. I am considering relocating to the Pacific Northwest. Just in terms of industry, there's a lot more out there for me, and so, you know, not necessarily in the city. Obviously it's expensive to live out there, but maybe somewhere on the outskirts. Who knows? Nothing is certain, but it was nice to be able to check it out with my good friend Bombadil of No Guts, No Galaxy. One thing that we did get to see in Everett, Washington, and talking about this, special thanks to DGW Photos, a viewer on the YouTube channel and live stream. He suggested we check out a couple of museums, one of which was the Flying Heritage Collection, which I believe is owned by Paul Allen of Microsoft. And this collection, you gotta see it. If you're ever in Washington, it's a must-see. I mean, there's two hangars filled with planes and some tanks and some like guns. There's an 88 and things like that. Mint condition, beautifully maintained. Most of the planes, I'm not gonna say everything, but most of the iconic planes and tanks that they do have are 100% operational. They fly, they use them in events and whatnot, and they're just simply stunning. You know, I haven't seen a whole lot of planes, so I don't really have you know, a lot of comparisons to make, other museums and whatnot, but you know, I was very impressed by what I saw there. So if you're ever in Washington near Everett, definitely check out the Flying Heritage Collection. I did post some photos of the trip there on my Twitter. I'll have a link to those in the description below. One thing though that I will share within this video is something really cool that we got to see. And by the way, we went there on a Thursday and lucked out because apparently Thursday is free admission. We had no idea, but otherwise it's like 14 bucks, which totally would have been worth it if we had to pay that. I would have had no problem paying, considering what we saw. But anyways, on that day they happened to be rolling out the M4 Sherman. Well, they were getting ready to park it, and it was running in the back, and so we ran out there to check it out, and I did manage to get some footage of it with my phone. Sadly, at this point, I'm behind a fence, but I do my best to capture what I can. We've all seen this thing a billion times, but I don't know, something about capturing it in color, 60 frames per second, and that engine. It's glorious. Video games never capture or do justice to the engine sounds of these beasts. Here's where they were actually bringing it into the hangar where it's normally displayed. This was kind of nice because we were really close to it without the fence being in the way. anyways, that's all I've got. We were so stoked. A lot of fun. Anytime you can see tanks rolling around. They, I believe, also host Tank Fest Northwest. Obviously, most of you are familiar with the normal Tank Fest in the UK. This is kind of the sister site for it. I'm not sure exactly where they do it, if it's near that location or somewhere else within Washington, but maybe in the future I can get out to one of those, because I've never gotten to go to a Tank Fest, obviously, since it's quite a ways out, and it would be fairly expensive for me to make that kind of trip. But anyways, back to some MechWarrior Online here. I really want to talk about MechCon and something that they announced at MechCon, which is kind of a big deal, I think, for me and most BattleTech fans in general. But as you can hear now, I'm getting over a cold. I got sick the night before MechCon, and it was pretty bad. I had a fever and the chills. I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? I said, I took an Advil and got up, got some fresh air. I'm going. I'm not gonna miss the reason I came out here. PGI, Piranha Games, the company that makes MechWarrior Online, that's hosting MechCon. They paid my way. They paid for the trip out. They paid for the hotel. I'm not going to miss out on this event. So I go. It was a rough day. I wasn't perfect. I tried to kind of keep my distance from most people. I didn't want to get anybody sick. Kept my hands clean all the time, and just tried to do what I can. Part of the trip was networking. You want to talk to people. You want to get some, work in the voiceover industry with other projects and whatnot. And just in general, you want to, talk to people. Got to meet a few of the viewers. Always great to meet you guys. Eraser brought people Swiss chocolates, delicious chocolates that have now ceased to exist. I inhaled them pretty quickly. Thanks again for that. Just, good times minus me being sick. I think that the temperature change was just too extreme for me, mixed with, of course, meeting a bunch of different people. Who knows? Got to work on that immune system for next time. But, during the con, we got to not only hear about some new stuff from MechWarrior Online, we got to see a little bit of the BattleTech strategy game by Harebrained Schemes. Definitely looking forward to that. Got to meet Mitch Gittleman in person. I interviewed him some time ago. I'll have a link to that in the description below. Fantastic interview with him. Loved it. Got to meet a couple other people that are a part of Harebrained, and got to hear from them about the game and what it's going to have and whatnot. So that was fantastic. But, I'd be lying if I didn't say the star of the show was the following. And, special thanks to PGI for letting me use this footage. This is, of course, the live demo of MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. Now, I am going to be talking over this, so if you haven't seen this, I will have a link to the playthrough of this in the description below. It's going to go to the official Piranha Games YouTube channel, and you can watch it without me talking over it. But I'm sure most of you have seen this already. Anyway, I just kind of want to, critique it and talk a little bit about it as we go. Now, this is using Unreal Engine 4, which is a departure from CryEngine, which is what they use in MechWarrior Online. Now, I've never really been a huge fan of CryEngine. Most developers that I talk to tell me that it's a pain in the ass to work with. I think this is going to allow them to do a lot with this franchise. I did get to speak with Sean Colton, who's the sound designer behind MWO, and he's also doing the sounds for this game. And he was telling me that this engine's allowing them to be a lot more flexible. They can add more layers to the audio, more files that can play at any given time as well. And just listening to this power-up sequence here, you can tell that it's a lot more gritty and realistic. Definitely more impressive than I think what we have in MechWarrior Online. Now, Keep in mind this is a 2018 release, single player only, no multiplayer. Check out that texture resolution, really high res. YouTube might not be doing it justice, but the raw file shows quite a bit of detail. From what we can tell of this, the gameplay seems a lot more slower paced. Something that I would have expected from MWO even. When I think about mechs or giant robots or war machines, I picture them moving a lot slower than they do in MWO, which kind of makes me wonder how they're going to transition from this being a single player experience to that being their multiplayer experience. You got two different animals there. I really love the gameplay that I'm seeing here. Big, stompy robots, and it just so far looks fantastic. This, you can feel the scale here.
One more sweep and we're done with this contract. And off this rock.
Just Russ panning over and paying attention to the details. Again, the texture resolution is fantastic here. One thing I was hoping for there, and again, this is early, super mega early alpha. I'm hoping that they'll have you like transition into the cockpit with an animation, kind of like Star Citizen or something, where you climb into it or go in through a hatch of some sort. That would be kind of cool. But again, early alpha, not me criticizing anything right now. It's way too early to do that. This was just, you know, what they have so far, and what they have now is actually quite impressive. But just everything here with the HUD, how it kind of wraps around. I believe this game is being built with VR in mind, so you can see how everything is here. It could easily transition into Oculus or Vive or whatever. Little infantryman down there. Again, that kind of stuff helps with the sense of scale, I think. You can feel the weight of these doors. The impressive part to me, though, is just when this thing starts moving. Because I feel like this is something that you're missing from MechWarrior, and it's just this kind of like, boom, boom, I'm in a giant robot, you know, it's just...
Base command to Shadowhawk 701.
Weapons of mech destruction.
Proceed to Charlie 05 and give me a sit rep.
And even the sounds of it stomping are just a lot more improved. Sean is doing a fantastic job with the new audio here. You can feel the weight of this thing a lot more, I feel, than you can in MWO. And
enemy detected.
It kind of, again, makes me wonder about how they're going to make that transition, because I feel like I'm going to prefer the gameplay of this, and then I'm going to want multiplayer using the similar kind of gameplay as opposed to MWO, which is a great game. It's one of my favorites, but I like what I'm seeing here almost so much that I want this to have multiplayer as well, so that might sound kind of strange, but those lasers sound like they have just more of a burn to them. Cannon's a little bit beefier too. This is just early, you know, mech AI that they've got here with this Raven as well. I'm sure they're gonna do a lot more with the damage modeling in the future. Again, 2018 release date.
Good job, 701. Confirming kill.
There's obviously
looks like a scout.
Some voiceover here, none of which is mine. I did speak to them about, you know, some work in the future. Hopefully they've got some parts for me. I'd really love to be a part of this.
Figure out what's going on. Return to the hangar and await further orders. Contact. We have multiple contact. Shadowhawk 701, can you get a visual?
Infinite possibilities.
Holy shit, they're dropping down right on top of us. Hang on, we've got a broadcast from Central, patching it through. Attention all mercenary units. We are under attack by a large expeditionary force. I am empowered to offer new combat contracts at premium pay rates with substantial performance bonuses and salvage rights. I await your reply.
Look at it this way, kid. We just got a pay raise.
Nice little nod there to MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. But this, the crowd went wild at MechCon when that popped up. People flipped out. Your eardrums exploded with the cheers. It was absolutely phenomenal. But we're going to transition into some Titanfall 2 multiplayer footage that I had laying around. And the reason I'm doing this is because I kind of want to talk about MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries and how PGI can do it justice. Now, a separate team is working on it. It's not going to interfere with MechWarrior Online. Don't worry that, you know, MWO isn't abandonware or anything like that. Still got a lot going on with that title. They are fully committed to supporting it. It is, after all, their multiplayer component. MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is the single-player gameplay for them. And again, I have my concerns in regards to how it's going to differentiate from MWO. It seems like a completely different experience, one which I may prefer to the gameplay found within MWO, but, you know, we'll see. Time will tell. If anything, it's good to have some nice, you know, MechWarrior single player again. I think, having just played through Titanfall 2's campaign, we can see how first person, whether it's sim or on foot or a mixture of both, can be done, you know, in a sci-fi realm these days, and provide you with that immersion factor that I'm always talking about. And that's what's key. You want to feel like you're a part of the universe. And a lot of things add to that. Obviously the visuals, the sounds, voice acting, storytelling. I think with MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, I'm hoping that they don't just kind of copy the old MechWarrior 2 games, or the, you know, MechWarrior 3 and 4 and things like that. You know, obviously a lot of those games are classic to many of us, specifically for me, MechWarrior 2 and MechWarrior 2 Mercs. But, you know, those games came out in the 90s. They're old and dated, and while they were amazing back then, you don't want to just make a newer version of that. You got to innovate, and I think it would help to look at other games that have single-player campaigns, which is, you know, again, why I'm kind of showing off some Titanfall 2 here. Now, obviously, this is multiplayer footage, but I did my playthrough of Titanfall 2. 5 hours, I think, in length. I imagine MechWarrior 5 being something that's a bit more lengthy, because it's, I think, a little bit more open-ended with you being a mercenary and taking contracts and whatnot, which is probably the way it should be. But I think they can still look to other games like Titanfall, maybe the Infinite Warfare campaign, other games that just have stellar single-player campaigns, and kind of, you know, feed off of those examples. I always imagine that if I was a developer or a lead designer or a CEO of a company, that I would say, all right, guys, your homework for the month is to finish these single-player games, and then report back, and, you know, take the things you like and you know, write them down, and also write down the things that you don't like. Titanfall 2 is a great example of something that PGI, the devs there, should play and say, all right, you know what? Here's what these guys did. How can we also add to our experience? Obviously, two different types of games. You know, Titanfall's got a mixture of infantry and Titan combat. MechWarrior, I imagine, to be mostly just in the mech, which is fine. That's what we expect. But, you know, how can we take that and make it more immersive? Can we bring more emotion into the mix? Can we feel for our mech as we did our Titan in Titanfall? Not that it has to talk to you or have a personality or anything, but can we immerse you in BattleTech lore? And you know, we've also got the BattleTech single-player turn-based strategy game by Harebrained Schemes coming out, which is, you know, also going to have to do a good job of that. I just hope they nail it. I really do. I hope it's just not super basic. Here's a mission, capture this, kill that. You know, I hope it's just not basic, boring objectives. I really do hope that there's a deep, impacting storyline that you know, keeps us coming back for more. time will tell. You know, again, 2018 release. A separate team is working on it. The early alpha stuff looks and sounds pretty great so far. Always room for improvement, things that we could nitpick, sure. But again, when it's such an early alpha, I'm not really going to get into anything that I would deem an issue. And even if there is, it's probably so minor, it's not worth mentioning anyway. But I think it's great to see that, you know, PGI is still doing well. You know, there's been a lot of controversy over MechWarrior Online and PGI itself, and you know, they keep coming back with more content, more mechs, more events. And this MechCon event put the Steam launch party to shame, and that launch party was fantastic, but this thing was just a massive upgrade, and you could tell that they spared no expense. It's like Russ Bullock as Richard Hammond from Jurassic Park. He spared no expense. The food was amazing, you know, the venue was pretty great, and just having harebrained schemes there, and Catalyst Games, the guys that do the tabletop. It was a true Mech Con. You had Jordan Wiseman, the creator of Battletech. You had them on stage talking about the history of Battletech, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the show. Just all the fans there, people hyped and hanging out and chatting about the game and things that they love. And if you were a Battletech fan, MechWarrior fan, it was the place to be. You know, on top of that, everybody got to enjoy the massive tournament that they had in MechWarrior Online. Lots of money getting thrown about there. You know, the matches seemed a bit lopsided from what I could see. You know, one team just seemed to dominate all, but it was great of PGI to, you know, provide this opportunity to people all over the world. People, you know, even as far as Australia, flying in to compete. Not only just to compete, but just to visit the event. People that are just hardcore Battletech fans all over the world. Battletech, MechWarrior, international, big time. Even more so than I think a lot of games. It's a franchise that's been around for so many years. It's to be expected. But again, guys, we gotta, you know, appreciate the fact that these things exist, and it's not easy. There's a lot that goes into making video games. There's a lot that goes into setting up an event like this. You know, I can imagine the amount of stress that, you know, the PGI faced, just, you know, coordinating everything and setting everything up and making sure everything works. Bombadil and Tina Benoit on stage. Bombadil, I can imagine, was quite relieved after his first you know, time out on the stage. It can be quite nerve-wracking, but he proved to be a bit of a rock star when he was out there. I think he did a very good job. There's some epic photography of him out on that stage, and yeah, he lived up to the Bombadil hype, I think. And again, special thanks to him for, you know, renting a car, driving me around, paying for way too many of my meals. I got him back on a couple, but not enough, and Bombadil's just a really good friend of mine, has been for quite some time now, and I really appreciate everything he does, not just as a member of PGI, but as a friend. And you know, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it. Again, special thanks to Piranha for bringing me out. I do feel like a part of the family, and you know, I wish them the best. Looking forward to playing MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, doing a playthrough here on the channel, maybe even streaming some of it too in the future. But long ways out, lots more to come. Ladies and gents, as always, thank you so very much for joining me. Greatly appreciate your viewership. Forever and always, I'll see you on the next one.